Oh, you turned it down a little bit.
It is now 6
Okay.
p.m.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to the regular town council meeting of Weaverville Town Council on Monday, December 18th, 2023. Glad you all are here. For those of you who are brave enough to weather the snowfall and come to the meeting tonight, so thanks for being here. I want to call attention to council members' attention that we're removing item number 7D, the LDG Marable project, from tonight's agenda. They've asked that to be removed and addressed next month because of some technical difficulties. So if you'll remove that item from your agenda. Other than that, is there approval for tonight's agenda or any other adjustments to tonight's agenda? If there are no adjustments, is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended, removing item 7D?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, sir. All those in favor say aye. Aye. So done. Thank you. I would like to draw councilors' attention to our conflicts of interest. It is the duty of every town council member to avoid both conflicts of interest and appearances of conflicts. Does any member have any known conflict of interest or an appearance of conflict with any of the matters on tonight's agenda? Hearing none, I assume there are none, so we'll move on. Next item up is item 4, the consent agenda. And Town Manager Coffey, would you go through the items in tonight's consent agenda, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening to all of you, and good evening to those of you in the audience. Consent agenda begins on page 2 with your November 14th workshop minutes, followed on page 7 by November 20th regular meeting minutes. Then on page 18, your monthly tax report and requests for refunds and releases. And if you'll take a look at the summary page on 18, you'll see the request for motor vehicle levy release and refund of $105.70 for October, and then November property tax levy release and refund of $6.79. The following page, you will see that we are at roughly 46% in percentage collection, with total year collection today, as of this last November, of 1.9 million, with 2.285 left to be collected. On page 24, beginning on page 24, you will see a budget amendment. This is for a total of $3,493.94, and this is Cops for Kids donations from November to December. This is budget amendment goes into the police department for Cops for Kids. And then on page 26, you have board appointments for the Board of Adjustment. We would recommend that you approve the following board reappointments and appointments. The first of which is Larry Murray, appointment as a regular member of the Board of Adjustment to serve an unexpired term ending September of 2024. And then Paul DeCrosta, appointment as an alternate member of the Board of Adjustment to serve an unexpired term ending September of 2026. On page 28, we would ask that you would set a public hearing for code amendments for fee in lieu of sidewalk construction, conservation, subdivision, and places of gatherings and home occupations. And this, we would ask that you would set this public hearing for January 22nd, 2024 at 6 p.m. in this room in order to receive public comment on the proposed text amendments on Chapter 20 related to fee in lieu of sidewalk construction, conservation, subdivisions, and places of gathering and home occupations. Moving forward several pages to page 43, you have the response letter to the LGC audit, and this is the document that all of you signed at our last workshop, but this is putting this on the agenda as is appropriate. You all have signed the letter. This is for dealing with the financial performance indication of concern for water asset depreciation that was explained to you during the budget, during the audit. So you have just a copy of that on page 54, that letter, again, which you've already signed. Page 45, the Code of Ethics was also presented to you last week during the workshop. This is the Code of Ethics for Town Council, and we would ask that you approve the resolution on page 46 to adopt the proposed Code of Ethics as presented. And I believe that is all for the consent agenda.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments about the consent agenda? If there are none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, sir. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good deal. Thank you very much. Manager Coffey, you're up next, item 5, the manager's report.
Certainly. This is a shorter report this month because we have had quite a few meetings and various things going on related to short-term rental meetings, as well as planning board, short-term rentals, preparing for going into the strategic planning process. So this month's manager's report is only one page this time. But just to give you another heads up that a couple of you have already submitted to me the homework for the strategic planning retreat, which will be held January 20th. So I have 2 of them so far. You do have January 1.
Who were those 2 star performers?
Those 2 star performers were the mayor and Councilman Jackson. Stars for the day. Also, as a reminder to you, we do have 2 listening sessions on short-term rentals. The first of which was held on December 5th, and that was at the end of the planning board meeting, as a part of the planning board meeting. We had approximately 70 people in attendance. The audio for that session has been uploaded to the town's website, and you can view it there at that link that I've provided. Session B will be held on Tuesday, January 9th. This is a listening session for neighborhoods with at least 1 short-term rental and no declaration of covenants restricting short-term rentals. So again, this was Tuesday, January 9th at 6 p.m. The next one is session C. This is a virtual via Zoom facilitated listening session. This is for short-term rental owners only, Wednesday, January 17th at 6 p.m. I do want to note that we are going to be very stringent about who speaks during these. They are going to be, we are going to make sure that these folks fit the criteria that they need to fit. The first short-term rental focus session was for the general public. So we had a good bit of different opinions, but these 2 are very focused, and we are going to make sure that those stay focused on those 2 areas. So the next item is just to give you a heads up, and Vice Mayor Cordell may want to add some to this, given that she's involved possibly to this degree on the MPO. And the projects that are going on there, or maybe not. I'm not sure if they're speaking about the replacement of bridges, but we do have the replacement of 2 bridges. These are bridges down at the New Stock Road exit. NCDOT has contacted us regarding that project and the replacement of those 2 bridges. This will include the improvements for the exit and entrance ramps and changes on Merriman Avenue at that intersection. DOT has identified that our water line on Merriman Avenue from the DuBose Hill Tank to the Ingalls Shopping Center as a utility, it will be affected by the project. A part of their projects, though, DOT does take on the expense of having those projects engineered and repaired based on where they were before. In other words, they make us whole again when they have done that work. So I do want to make sure that you're aware of that, because it is, although that is technically Woodfin at that point, our water line is in that area, so it will be impacted. And so we have written a letter, submitted the letter request that we agree to allow them to design, bid, and construct or reconstruct, repair what they need to. So that's just a bit of information for you. I do want to add something here and make sure that this is a part of the minutes. A couple of months ago, we shared with you that we had roughly $100,000 that we would have left from the street improvement project. And I promised you at that point in time that I would bring back to you any changes in that or any additions that we might want to use some of the funds from that. And so want to bring back to you that we're in a position where we're doing very well with the street improvement program that we're working on now. And we actually are in the position of having a little bit of extra so that we can begin working on some concrete curbing related to handicap accessibility. We do not know the exact amount of that. It will not go over the $100,000. But I do want to make you aware of that, as I shared with you that I would make you aware of that. Mr. Pennell and I feel like that's a great way to continue, because we can continue the concrete projects even when they can't continue paving. So even with weather and that kind of thing, that may inhibit or prohibit our ability to move forward with paving, but not necessarily with concrete projects. So we felt it was a good idea just to keep, while we have them working, go ahead and keep them working to carry us through here. And then just a couple of reminders. Of course, you've heard about the strategic planning retreat on January 20th from 9 to 1. But also just a reminder that town offices will be closed Monday 25th through Wednesday the 27th for the holidays. That is all of my report.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for the town manager?
On the curbs that you mentioned, they've already started that, right? I mean, Central Avenue is about half done on the driveway, on the handicap accessible curbs.
They have.
So we're gonna add another street or something to it?
Some of those were part of the actual paving, but some of them, as my understanding, are kind of separate from separate from a typical one of our projects that we're currently paving. They're just gonna start picking up on some odds and ends for handicap accessibility, and I will tell you, in order to keep them moving and keep them working and us be able to get these projects completed earlier, I would certainly recommend we allow them to keep moving forward.
Thank you.
I have a question. How do we notify people when we have 3 days off for the Christmas? How do we notify people that their garbage day is definitely going to change? Mm-hmm. Is there a good way?
Yes, if you have, in fact, you don't have a Facebook page.
I don't want one either.
I just realized that. I've seen the notice on Facebook at least 16 times in the last 2 days. Yeah. It is very widely published on Facebook. It's on, we've pushed it over to Weaverville's neighbors. It's on Instagram. It's on our website. It was in the eFocus, I think.
No, I didn't get it.
Okay.
EFocus,
Okay.
but it will be in the next one, which will include New Year's and the schedule from
There you go.
the holiday, all holidays.
But, okay, so
Could you use
But it
code
was
red?
always on the website.
Could
and
use
on
code
the
red.
Public Works page.
thinking about that.
We could go ahead and send out just a e-blast and let everybody know, that's something that'd be easy enough to do, so we can
Well,
certainly
the
do
reason I
that.
say that's because if you get a lot of trash out on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and it's not gonna be picked up until Friday, we're gonna have bears and trash everywhere.
Sure, sure. Ms. Marshall, will you, take a stab at sending out just a focused
Yeah.
e-news blast? Certainly.
Thank you.
So we put it on the voice recording too, call in.
Okay, so if you didn't hear that, we do have it on the recording. I think Public Works also has it on their recording as well, so if folks call in town hall, they'll hear it, but also they hear it at Public Works on their voicemail.
Good deal, it's everywhere. Any other questions or comments about the manager's report? No, thank you very much. Item 6 is our general public comments, and no one has signed up to speak tonight. You're making my job really easy tonight, guys, thank you very much.
And Mr. Mayor, there were no written comments received in advance of the meeting.
Thank you, and do we have anyone online? None online either. I am really lucking out tonight, so thank you. Therefore, move on to item 7, our discussion and action items for the evening. And the first item up is item A, the water commitment request for North Ridge Farms. Public Works Director panel, what's up?
Yes, tonight I'm bringing to you an item from the folks, the developers of North Ridge Farms. They have, as you know, been annexed. And they've now provided the application for water commitment. And they've done that with the appropriate commitments that we always ask them for to show us the calculations of how much water they need and so forth. And you can read there on the agenda item, they're talking about 568 residential units of sizes from single-family homes to apartment dwellings, condominiums, townhouses mixed in. They're planning to serve their development from our town water line that ends in front of Potter Road. You go down the access road to enter into their property. We talked to them about having a second access that would start at the North Ridge Commons townhouses, at the back entrance on the Gill Branch Road. Ask them to extend the water line down Gill Branch Road to their back entrance to North Ridge Farms, so that we've got a loop connection with water being able to flow from 2 main lines to serve those folks. We felt like that's the perfect thing to do. Case the Hobby Lobby line breaks, we hate to have that many people out of water for that long period of time. And they've been agreeable with that. As mentioned in the previous meeting, I have studied the North Ridge Farms development and its connection to all the other projects that we have that are in one way or another on our list of developments that either pending or action by you for commitment or being granted commitment or are actually under construction. There's 11 of those. And in one of those categories. So what I did is I looked at not only their immediate commitment that we have, when we say commitment, we can say, yes, we'll provide you with X amount of water for us to. Now, we all realize that these projects take time to build. And so we're taking a look, and a good example of that is the Palisade project just across from Lake Louisa. The project first came to me asking for an application in October of 2021. Here we are over 2 years later. They have their meter. They're using it for some construction water, and they're paying a bill. They don't have an optical yet. good one to think about is the Holly Weaver behind CBS. They also came to us in October of 2021. As of today, there's no construction begun out there. Now, they have sent to me their water application for me to sign, for them to submit their plans, their water plans to the state for approval. But they're still months away from having a grading done so that they can build water. So my guess is, in their first day of asking for an application, if someone moving in, it's at least 2 years from now, if not more. And the reason I bring that to your attention is that just because we say Northridge Farm has asked for water today, doesn't mean they can actually need water today. And our county attorney talked with the Northridge Farms attorney, who's here last month, and asked him, tell us the schedule. And what they told us is that from an occupancy standpoint, they think they're going to be in some stage of completion with their development in 3.5 to 4 years. And I would wonder, Palisades can't have somebody moved in 2 years. And while they may be moving.
It's not working.
Is that working now?
Yeah, it is.
We heard everything you said, Dale.
Oh, yeah.
But those online cannot hear.
Okay, I know, I just didn't want him to repeat, think he had to repeat himself.
Good, because I'm not reading notes. What? Should we continue or wait?
Hold on 1 second.
I'll be glad to.
Tap, just tap the.
I heard that.
Testing, 1, 2.
I don't think that one was working either.
Does this one work?
Yeah.
Does it? Okay. Just start all over.
So what I'm trying to say to you in terms of the town's water system is that the Northridge Farms is the biggest project we have on deck right now. They say they won't need water before 3.5 to 4 years. So I'm saying, okay, we're at the first of 2024. So 4 years is beginning of 2028. 4 years. So keep that number in mind. And all the other developments may or may not be able to be underway or under construction or completed within that same period of time. But just assume they are. All these projects would need water by then. And we talked specifically to our consulting engineers on our water plan. They tell us that if all goes well, which is the same thing the developers all tell us, if all goes well, they expect that we're going to be in a position to start running the expansion of our water plant in June 2026. So what that basically tells me is that we can take care of everyone we promised water to and the Northridge Farms development before the plant comes online. The expansion comes online much less after it comes online. The current plant produced 1.5 million gallons of water per day. If if you add all the commitments that we have up, we're at 1.4 million gallons per day. Now, this is a serious subject, and the town manager has already suggested that we have a water-related workshop as our topic in January. And at that time, I can produce some charts and some graphs, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. But I wouldn't be standing here today recommending that you approve the water allocation request for Northridge Farms if I didn't think that we were in a position to be able to serve them and the others that we've already committed to. Yes, sir, Mr. Bennett.
What happened, I thought we'd all been led to believe it was gonna be 4 or 5 years before we'd have the plant, and you're saying now 2 years, a little over 2 years?
No, 3.
The 4 or 5 years, we've already spent a couple of them.
Okay,
In all the preliminary work on the plant, the resiliency project that's underway, and the thorough, that's a good word, thorough examination of the whole project that we went through earlier this year. So we've already spent some of that 4 or 5 years. So we've got basically 2.5 years from now is when they say if everything goes well in terms of the completing the design and permitting and the bidding, all that should take about a year and then about another 18 months or so to actually do the construction.
well, the reason for asking that is, we're gonna have developers come in with other projects in the next couple of years probably. And I just wonder if we can take on others, or within the time frame you're giving, it looks like it's a safe bet, but you see what I'm asking, you know?
Oh, I understand exactly, sir, and the last page in your agenda package is my summary of all the commitments that we have today, including tonight. And if you look down the bottom right-hand corner, there's a number there that's 94.33%. Last 4 months ago when I did my quarterly report to you, that number was about 72%. So in these 3 months since then, that's how many requests that we've had. Northridge Farms makes up about 15% of the increase from 72% of our water system usage up to 94%. So, and that's jumping ahead a little bit, but part of the reason for the discussion about future ideas and developments and thoughts is what the workshop will be for in January, is to talk about that, because I've told you before, there's 2 magic numbers. One's 80%. When we get to 80% of our treatment capacity, we had to start on a plan to improve and expand our water. Of course, we've already done that, so we're covered there. But we went from 72% to 94% in 3 months. And so it's time for us to go to the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality and their Water Resources Division, have a discussion with them, and tell them that. However, we have the plan. We, in a very technical sense, we have already begun work on the plan by doing the resiliency project.
Right.
Yeah.
So in effect, we are working on the plan to assure that we have the adequate water. Now, from a development standpoint, in the future, we'll have to have some discussion.
Thank you.
If I may add to that too, one of the things I think is very important about this whole conversation is staff is currently on average, meeting with our Withers Ravenel twice a week. I mean, this is not, these are not, it's just not just happening at the Withers Ravenel. We truly are pushing, and pushing and pushing. And, back when we talked about the 5 years to 5 to 6 years, that was from start to finish. And that started with plan and design, permitting, those kinds of things. We've already passed some of that. So there's a lot to be said for what we've already done.
Sure.
Plus the power and the generators
Yes,
that we went ahead and approved.
yes. Staff has taken very seriously the resolution that Town Council approved 2 years ago in June, and has moved very quickly and been very expeditious in checking all the boxes on that. So and truly, average two meetings a week. I mean, there are some weeks we're meeting with them more often than that.
Any other questions for the Public Works Director on this item? Dale, on page 105 on your pending projects, item number 11 refers to a Cole Road Apartments. Am I just forgetful, or do we not know about this one yet?
There's actually two of them there, sir. Item number 9 is the Pleasant Grove Fox property. Project. That's actually across Pleasant Grove Road from the 9 Pleasant Grove project, the townhouse project approved earlier this year. So it's one we have a water allocation request, and they're working on their annexation request. But we knew about them, and we had the allocation in hand, so we went ahead and put that in projections, so we're there.
Okay.
75 Dome Road, Cole Road is, go all the way to the end of Main Street, cross the 4-lane, get on the beginning of Park Chapel Road, turn right at the Crucible Glass.
Going down Clark
facility,
Chapel.
Go up by Salvatore Pottery, at the end of that road is where that project is. And they're gonna build 8 apartments with 25 units each. That's what they have asked for an allocation request for the real next month.
Okay. More excitement coming.
And those two are figured in.
They're not approved.
They're not approved, but they're
But
they're
figured in the
calculated.
numbers.
Just so that I was trying to account for everything that we do.
Okay.
Any other questions for the Public Works Director? Any other discussion about this item? If not, is there a motion to approve the water commitment request for North Ridge Farms?
I'll make that motion if nobody else will.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion on this item? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. Thank you, Dale. Next item up is item B, annexation petition for Maple Trace neighborhood. And first, we're going to hear from David King, who's from the Maple Trace neighborhood. David?
Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is David King. I'm the Vice President of Maple Chase HOA. Before I start, I would like to make a public thank Jennifer Jackson for all she's done in giving direction and providing assistance in a friendly and professional manner. I can't begin to say enough good things about her. She has gotten us this far in this process, and she's been, like I say, I can only say a few things, but I can't say them all. She's been very, very helpful.
Thank you, David.
So,
We
thank
like-
you.
we like her
Ms.
too.
Jackson. Okay. I'm here to give an update on Maple Trace annexation and ask for your guidance and assistance. We are aware that some roads and storm drain testing would be a part of the annexation process, to which we were agreeable and still are agreeable. Within reason, the requested number of drillings far exceeds a reasonable number. somewhere between 62 and 100 holes were asked for, ranging from 4 to 6 inches in diameter, would be a detriment to our roads and far exceed normal core drillings. The original engineering firm, ESC Southeastern LLP, whom we plan to do the testing, gave us an estimate of around $5,000 to $6,000 for course samples based on what they would normally provide for road asphalt base evaluation for a development our size. When they received the map of drillings, the cost skyrocketed to $20,000 plus just for the road samples and could not estimate the deep drill samples. ESC also quoted a possible $15,000 plus for storm drain inspection. I have found a better quote still in the $10,000 range, which that's acceptable. I have spoken with Nathan Pennington, Buncombe County Planning and Development Director, about Maple Trace and have found there was permitting and inspection on all 4 phases of Maple Trace. Mr. Pennington has offered to answer any questions for council or town staff if required. Maple Trace was developed with oversight from WGIA and BLE Engineering and Buncombe County Planning and Development. Reports and permits for all 4 phases of Maple Trace were signed by engineers and recorded with Buncombe County. Buncombe County Planning does all of Weaverville's permitting and inspections through an interagency agreement. Is it not reasonable to trust their oversight and permits and engineering documents generated throughout Maple Trace's development? Maple Trace is asking town council to consider more reasonable approach and testing methods. Annexation process, as well as the vision and direction of Weaverville, is ultimately decided by town council. So we are asking for your consideration and guidance. We still believe, as we did from the beginning, this is a win-win for Maple Trace and the town of Weaverville. We have a healthy tax base that will grow with Weaverville. Been in my home for 5 years. My market value has gone up between $250,000 and $300,000 based on sales within Maple Trace. By adding Maple Trace to the area the town already is serving and experiencing growth, helps cover the cost of service by adding more paying households. Having Maple Trace subject to town ordinances and restrictions will help unify and ensure planned growth the Reams Creek Valley as it inevitably comes under the town of Weaverville. Thank you. Questions?
Any questions for Mr. King?
Okay.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Are you involved still with the developer? Is he alive? I mean, are you still involved with the original developer?
It's closed out, but we are in touch with him. We have had conversations with him. He has assisted us with this.
Okay, so does he have blueprints and standards that, I mean, because you're asking us to believe that there was blueprints and inspections done, but I would.
Yes, those are available. I can make those available. Planning Board has those documents and they have them registered with the Register of Deeds. The most recent document that they sent over to the Register of Deeds from the Planning Board was the stormwater agreement and plan. That was just recorded at the Register of Deeds.
So you indicated that the county planning department has done inspections through each of the 4 phases of the development, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so did that include testing of the roads, any core testing of the roads?
I have one document from BLE Engineering, and I have not been, holidays coming up, it's been hard to get a hold of people. William Bowie has been very helpful. and I have trouble keeping these, letters straight. He's WGIA. And, yes, and one.
What's a WGIA?
One document he sent me was phase one, seeking notice, but it talks about the road, construction, the process, the compaction, and all those, signed off on.
Okay. So I would assume that Mr. Pennington's office would have these documents and these test results.
Mr. Pennington's office.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I would add that Nate, Mr. Pennington, know him personally, does not review roads.
Okay.
Does not, in any phase of the process. They do not check roads.
Thank you.
They do similar to what our own planning director does, and that is zoning, code enforcement, those types of things. They do not inspect roads.
Okay.
Somebody would have inspected these roads at some point. I mean, through the permitting process and the approval process, is that not correct? I mean, the roads would have been approved by who? DOT, by Buncombe County, by somebody.
Well, it's not a DOT road,
It's
it's not a town road, so it's just a.
It's a private road, so
So
no.
it doesn't have to be
So
inspected.
nobody has inspected the roads.
It's my understanding that the private roads have to, in a subdivision, have to build to DOT, road standards, which are a little bit less than what town standards are. Scott Street, who you have met on the 300 Hamburg Mountain subdivision that was the annexation that was recently approved, that's Windsor-built homes, and that was the developer for Maple Trace years ago. Scott indicated to me that he thought that those streets were built to DOT standards, but because they're not being taken over by DOT, there were no DOT inspections. It's just a set of standards that the contractor is required and expected to meet.
Mr. Keene, do we have any information, do we have any reason to think that your roads were not built to state standards?
Well, they're not, because the drawings indicate, state standards, I think, is 2 and 6. Our documents show these are 2 and 8. And we're not opposed to.
2, meaning 2 inches of asphalt and 8 inches of gravel?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not opposed to doing something. We're not opposed to, numbers, every engineer I spoke with said this was excessive. They said anywhere between 1,000 and 500 feet. That would have put us in, with a mile and a half of road, that'd be 6 holes. We're willing to do 10 or 12 holes, which is kind of what has been recommended.
Right. Did the same construction crew do all 4 phases?
Yes, Will Bowie was the engineer on all 4 phases.
Okay.
And BLE, I've been unable to talk with them, but I know they were involved in the first phase. Mr. Bowie could give me that information.
Okay. But it's just, my concern would be that if there were different construction companies during different phases, they may have done work differently.
Different pavers during the 4 phases.
Right.
I think Mr. Bowie's firm does all of Windsor's projects.
But he did do all of Maple Trace's phases.
Is there,
Yes, I have at least 3 of the documents from him. I'm missing page 2, that's just, I didn't get it from county. Documents where he signed off on that went to the county, recorded. Also, 2 of these documents I noticed were shared with Weaverville.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chase?
is there a way that you could get a quote on maybe some non-destructive testing in combination with a fewer number of drills?
Yes, sir, we did look at that, and the only reason we looked at that is because we were thinking, if we're gonna do so many holes, we would go to ground penetrating radar. Well, I was initially led to believe that that would be a cheaper way to go until he gave me the quote, which came back almost as much as drills, but still wouldn't create the same damage.
have a question.
Yes, sir.
There's a factor from what you pulled out a while ago saying maybe 6 or 8 drillings, and we've got 60 here. What is your basis, and I'd like to know from Dale, what is the basis for your number? Because I'm not that familiar with it, but it'd be interesting to know what your basis is.
Dale, we're gonna call him Dale in just a moment, so let me
I'm
just,
drawing my number from engineers that I've spoken.
Okay, Dale?
any more questions for Mr. King before he sits down?
Well, there probably will be after we talk to them.
Okay, for right now, are there any more questions? No, thank you, Mr. King. Dale? What questions do y'all have for, go ahead. Dr. Mr.
I
Jackson?
just wanted to know that there was a difference of a factor of 10 almost. He came up with 6 borings for the thing. You have 60, and I was just saying, what was his basis? He said, I talked with some engineers, but I'm sure you had a basis also.
Well, I am an engineer,
Yeah,
Right.
and have been for a long time.
and I respect that.
And, we're not doing anything different with Maple Trace that we didn't do with Creekstone. Almost, the same percentage of holes per mile of street is what we're doing. I'm disappointed that anyone would think they're damaging their streets. If you take 67 4-inch diameter holes, go back to your algebra days, calculate the square area of that times 67, you get a total of 5.84 square feet of penetration into the streets, which is about as big as the table that Selena and Jennifer said. As compared to the total square footage of their streets of over 60,000. So I would have to disagree respectfully with the fact that the cores that we're asking to be drilled would destroy their streets. To be very frank, the damage that we'd be doing to the street would be far less than the damage that they've already had to repair, especially on their entry road coming into there. So the reason for my 67 is that in the 5 to 6 years since their streets have been built, since phase 1 and then subsequent, there's already considerable damage to the streets in the first phase. The first phase was the streets that all the construction traffic had to drive on to get to phases 2, 3, and 4. And they've already had to do some repairs, and some of those repairs are currently looking like they need some repair. So what I'm trying to do is I looked at the plans they provided on those, in that area, and I've ridden the street multiple times and looked at where there's a lot of fill under the road, places where you might begin to see a center line crack on the road starting to show up. There's lots of areas with no damage, but those typically on the cul-de-sacs that only have half a dozen or so homes on them, or not on the main thoroughfare through the development. So it's my opinion to represent the town in the most appropriate way and realize that same thought process that we did at Creekside, that we were in need of far more holes than just hanging. And that's the reason that I was asking for 67 instead of small.
Thank you.
So Dale, they believe their roads were constructed with 2 inches of asphalt and 8 inches of gravel. What is our town standards?
I think Mr. King said theirs were done with 2 inches asphalt and 6 inches. No, 8 inches. That's what I think. 2 inches of asphalt over 8 inches of gravel over 100% compacted subdivision.
So if in fact the test revealed that their roads are as they hope they are, then they would meet town standards.
From the standpoint of the
What other questions or comments do we have for Mr. Pennell?
I'm assuming your visual observations are indicating it's not performing as expected.
I've been the engineer on all the street paving projects the town of Weaverville has done in about the last 25 years. And what we've seen is that if you do a road correctly, and it's built properly, cross-section wise and construction wise, you should get 20 years out of the road with really no maintenance involved. And that's what we've seen by looking at roads that we paved. We need future capacity, current capacity, and the contractors have done the work. You're getting about 25 years out of those roads. They're going to drop off pretty quickly after that, but at least 20 years. And I don't want to belabor the point, but if we see the road as a development that's 5 to 7 years old, and it's already needing patches, and it's already showing signs of deterioration, makes me wonder why. And I want, before I recommend to you to do anything about taking over a road, I need to be able to give you accurate information, and I can't do it without the book.
Any other questions?
Yeah, did I hear earlier that phase one part of their roads is the part that had all the heavy construction trucks and such on it? So it's quite possible that phase 2, 3, and 4 are not damaged.
They've not been around for the same 5 or 7 years, so I can't say that.
Okay.
So it's maybe quite, I'm not sure who could answer this question best, but my understanding is that the road that connects from the bridge to Maple Trace is owned by a separate private owner, correct?
Pardon?
The road that connects Maple Trace to the, is it Pleasant Grove or whatever the name of it is, connecting road. I forget the name of the connecting road, to the bridge. That road is still on separate private property, correct? The only access to get to your neighborhood.
Yes, and I can give you an update on that.
Okay, that would be quite helpful.
There's a very short section, 50 to 75 feet, that's between the new bridge and where the road is owned by Maple Trace begins.
Okay, so it's only,
That's on a piece of private property.
so there's a 50-foot or so piece of property which is not part of Maple Trace. And what update can you give us on that property? Because that's your only ingress and egress, correct?
Yes. I spoke, we had to, it was take us a while. We had to have, find a surveyor, which took some time. We got a surveyor, and I've been in talks with the landowner. It's roughly 70 feet, and we had a survey, the 45 feet from center, and we finally got that. It's been recorded. I spoke with the attorney today. They are wrapping up their title search, and I had let the homeowners or the property owner's agent know last week that we were still in the process, and this is moving along. Nothing will happen before after the holidays. It's so
Sure.
close to Christmas that I don't expect it is, and what's gonna happen is they are doing an exchange of that piece of property with Maple Trace for some right-of-ways, utility right-of-ways across Maple Trace. And once that property has been transferred, we will put that in the annexation.
So the HO would then become the owners of that last 70 feet?
Not at the moment.
Right, but that's the plan. And
That is the plan.
the property owner seems to be agreeable, at least as of today.
He is the one who suggested
Okay,
we do that.
thank you.
Also, yes, that entrance does need some patching and fixing up. We are agreeable to do that. That's one of the reasons we were asking for a more reasonable amount of holes. I don't know why it takes that committee to determine if this section is bad and we do another section, we have to have so many holes to do that. And the objection is where the cost of this went to. I mean, it went out road samples. Dale was also asking for some deep drillings, which, and that's where I brought up this about the planning board and the engineers who were on site as far as compaction. I think that it's probably supporting documents that was checked as it went through. It's just like right there below us where they're building those new townhomes. They're compacting there. I mean, who is checking that compaction? I assume that's the planning. So I don't know.
They don't check those.
Private development usually has to hire
Yes.
third-party consultants.
Planning
to do that.
departments do not check roads.
But yes, that Rumpkin County would not actually be the ones doing it. It'd be their engineers, just like in Maple Crest.
If they hire them and pay for them. If the developer hires them and pays them to do so, otherwise they don't get done.
Maple Crest did.
Okay, yes.
So,
So what we're asking council is your consideration, obviously, you know, you have the last word, we will go by whatever council says. We also are expecting to make some improvements in repairs to that lower section, whether we're annexed or not. We're gonna have to.
The lower section meaning phase one or
Phase
meaning,
one,
okay.
phase one.
can I ask the question? So there's 134 homes, and our calculation is that with the taxes that you would be paying additionally in order to be annexed into the town is about $1,000 per home. And so that, over an 8-year period, at $1,000 per home, that would have brought in about $1 million of taxes, which, you know, that goes toward a road fund and public works and things like that, police protection. What Dale's asking for could cost as simple as $100 or $150 per 134 homes, and it would be a one-time fee to see whether or not these are built to standard. If you have a document that you think they're built to standard, it's worth the risk. But when we walked out of here the last time, I thought I heard you say, we're gonna do a spot check. We're gonna do about a third of what Dale asked for, and if they all come back good, we're gonna feel good. And if they don't come back good, we're probably not gonna move forward. That's what I thought I heard you say.
That's what we were leaning toward until I started talking with all the engineers. And we're still willing, we're not saying we won't drill. We will do these drillings. The ones that are most problematic are those deep drills that he wants done, that we can't get a cost on until they're drilled. The road, if we can do away with that and do the road drills, we'll do it.
Dale, I didn't mean to interrupt, but can you give us some background, some information about the deep drilling and what that involves and how necessary that may or may not be?
Sure. The areas that King was talking about are places where they had to fill in creeks or fill in valleys or that sort of thing, in order to bring the road grade up so it matches the road on either side of that valley. What I want to see is some drillings all the way through that, and not deep, or being 10 feet, 20 feet deep, to original ground. And what I want to see is two things. One is to compact it, and number two, in doing that drilling and bringing that drill material to the surface, are there any organic materials in that road bed? Are there tree roots, are there topsoil, is there leaves, are there debris, or anything like that that would give us a concern that that field is not going to stay in its current condition over a period of time. That's the reason that in those selected areas, and I picked very specific areas for that to be done by looking at their plans and seeing the profile of the water lines that lay in those roads. So I can see exactly where there was a dip that had to be filled up so that it installed water lines 3 feet below the road. So it's certainly not, in my mind, anything that says it at all. I'm just being concerned with paying $600,000 plus or minus to repave 1 mile of road. It's about 1 mile and 4 tenths or so here. So, when you start looking at today's numbers, with that work, it's a considerable expense.
And that assumes the subgrade is good quality and well compacted. If you had to redo fill slopes, that changes that number significantly.
Change it considerably depending on where and how that settlement might occur. And it could happen, even with these testing, we do the best example, but having a whole thread, we left public work facility. Did the engineering on that. We core tested that whole site, no rock. When we built the building, there was a meteorite-sized rock in the middle of the public works building. We did the 4 corners for the building. We were not in the middle. There was a rock there that counted that place with some rock. But having said that, one thing is we're trying to give them a reasonable testing program to assure the town what it's contemplating.
Is there an option to annex without the roads?
I'm sorry, what? Is there an option, what?
To annex without the roads?
Absolutely. So there are two different questions that ultimately are before town council, and you have the discretion to answer either one of these. One is the annexation request, and the other is the essentially a public street commitment where you are agreeing to take over the streets. They're not necessarily connected. However, the annexation petition is heavily purposed with wanting the town to take out. The reason for annexation is that they want their private roads to be taken over by the town. And so that kind of connects those two independent questions.
If I may just add to that, if we were to accept the annexation and not the roads, what happens then when our trucks our large, heavy trucks are going in to pick up garbage or whatever the case may be? What is the what is the fallout for us in that situation?
Yeah, it's not obviously not ideal.
Right.
But we do that all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, there are plenty of subdivisions that have private roads that we do serve.
Like Creekside.
Like Creekside.
And I don't think they want to annex if we're not gonna take the rest.
So if, I will say, and again, I hope Mr. King will correct me if I'm wrong, since the annexation petition did indicate that they wanted the roads to be taken over, to be brought into the town public street system. If that is off the table, my guess is the 100% participation in the voluntary annexation starts falling off.
Right.
You're not gonna have 100% of lot owners in there that will continue to want to be annexed.
And so I think I want to recognize Maple Trace and thank them for their vote of confidence in Weaverville and their work at getting 100% participation and request for annexation, because it is highly unusual and we really respect that. So actually, it occurs to me that there's actually many ways that we could structure this. Then I'm not sure we've examined or evaluated all those different options, how annexation could work. And it sounds like maybe, Dale, have you reviewed the documents that Mr. King has presented? Are you familiar with all the information he has? Have you all had a meeting of the minds yet?
I've not, except for the original design drawings, I've not seen any of the documents.
Okay. So it occurs to me that if we did some initial core drilling and found out that in fact, the roads did meet what they believe to be the case, which actually meets town standards, then would that change your mind at all with regard to how many other core drillings or deep drillings might be necessary?
If their documents are detailed enough the entire length of 77,000 or so feet of roads, that would certainly give me something to look at and see if there was a reason there for me to change my recommendation for this.
Mr. Pennell, are these 67 spots, these core drillings, are these particularized in location? Have you actually gone and put eyes on the road and said, I want to drill here, 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 and counted up 67? Or is this just a per linear foot calculation?
I've given them a map showing the detailed location of every single one of those 67 routes. And then I've divided that into where it's just pavement and stone only, and where it's a deep one.
And am I to understand that there's not a generally accepted standard of how many core drillings we need per linear foot? This is based entirely on education experience in your years as serving as an engineer, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Are they kind of broken up between the 4 stages or the 4 phases? The word's phases, I'm sorry.
Yes, it's a relatively, I produced a map of which is, thankfully, handed them to me. I went through and took the maps and was able to go through each street and say exactly where I wanted them. And that was done while I was riding the road in the field, and picking out where I wanted it and what side of the road and so forth.
Yeah.
And so it was a rhyme and a reason.
If we decided to maybe let them do a preliminary evaluation, is there an ASTM or NCDOT standard that they could follow that would be acceptable?
It's that, all I'm looking for is depth. Just drill out the core, lay it on pavement, put the ruler beside it, and give me a report that says, here's where it was, core 123. And I want to look at that and say, does that ruler show dimensions and pavement? And I'll use some, a little bit of additional information. We did the exact same thing on Church Street, when we did it 3 or 4 years ago. We suspected there was concrete under it. We took a core drilling of every dozen spots on Church Street. Go through the asphalt, through the concrete, through and then into the material below. We just did the same thing this spring on Alabama Avenue and on Central Avenue. That's again, we suspected concrete on those streets, and we wanted to know exactly what was there. And that's the report I got. There were 18 on Central and 12 on Alabama. Not quite expensive as far as
I don't know that there's an urgency to this, and I think probably the people at Maple Trace have time to decide how they want to move forward, especially since they're trying to get that entrance that we already know has a pre-existing condition. And just like with an insurance and a health issue, we wouldn't, it's hard to get insurance when you have a pre-existing condition, so we wouldn't annex the entrance knowing that it has that issue until you fixed it anyway. So I think there's some time here for them to figure out how they want to move forward.
So I think one thing we don't have enough information on yet is what one is just comparing of notes between our public works director and the HOA, the engineers that you all are using, and the documents you already have hasn't been reviewed by both sides. So having a meeting of the minds would be helpful, and having some greater information about the 70-foot of interest road is still unclear too, before we can make a decision. Does anyone else disagree with those ideas?
Is it possible that, for instance, phase 1 would not pass our whatever, and phases 2, 3, and 4 would? Phase one is the one with all the construction trucks, traffic, yeah. Yeah, so what is the solution then? Would we accept the roads then or not? If 3 phases pass and one doesn't?
You really wouldn't want to have to cross a section of private road that has issues and problems to get to a section that
And if you recall, we had that same situation at Creekside.
Exactly, same problem.
I don't,
There were spaces that were fine, and then there were spaces that were clearly not up to standard.
In that case,
So
the same
phase-
situation, phase one in both situations.
so phase one is the entrance into this, if I'm understanding correctly, and that one isn't good. Is there some compromise, some way we could get that fixed? Whatever that means, so that, and I'm assuming that the other 3 phases are fine, the one that haven't had all that heavy traffic on it. I mean, is this making sense?
Yes.
Thank you.
It seems to me that we should ask the staff over the next month or so to meet with the HOA and find out what documents they have and what engineers they've worked with, and find out if there's some kind of reconciliation possible here. And also, that gives the HOA time to work out some specific details with regard to the 70-foot entrance road, and then come back to us next month and see how things have changed at that point. Does that make sense to council members?
Or a couple of months, however
Or
long.
how long it takes to get
Please.
those done?
Please.
Oh, a couple
Please,
of months.
a little bit longer than 1 month.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, you know.
I have another question. And maybe we talked about this earlier, is there documentation that these roads meet DOT standards?
There are some documents that show that they, with 2 and 8. Dale and I can agree to pick out, go back to where we were talking about recently, 10 holes. If we can pick out 10 holes to do as a preliminary, I think that would be, some of the road testing and some of the holes. If we can come to an agreement on that, you know, we just can't commit, you know, an unspecified amount of money to this until we have some idea. I mean, we're willing to do what we can. We also, we don't have a bottomless pit of money. We got enough to make, you know, do this. And even though the entrance needs some work, it's not falling apart. I mean, there are places that certainly are and need to be repaired, and
that can be done.
the 70 feet has got some repairs that need to take place. What we're trying to do is to come out of this point where if you ask us to do repairs, we've got money to do repairs.
Right. So I thought I heard Mr. Pennell say earlier that if you did some preliminary drawings, that might give him information that he might change his recommendation. So I think that possibly is a good solution.
He did say he would change.
He said he would be open to that. Yes, he did. And did you not say that, sir? Yes, you did. You said, you indicated earlier that if you had some indications from core drillings that they did, in fact, the roads did meet town standards, that might change your assessment. Is that correct?
What I said was if they want to go and do 10, 15 cores to get an indication of whether they passed or they failed, I'm agreeable with them doing that and us reviewing that information. And if it shows that all 15 of them passed, then I said they should have no problem doing the rest of them.
I misunderstood then, because I thought you indicated that might change your evaluation.
Like I mentioned, we go off in the middle of the community center, and and their recommendation to take 1 core for 1,000 feet. I'm sorry, I don't agree with that.
I'll jump in here and say, no, he did not say that, Mr. Mayor.
Perhaps I misunderstood. That's happened once before.
He did not say that. And I will tell you, and I don't know if Jennifer wants to speak to this, and Mr. King, you're not gonna say the sweet things you said about Jennifer when I say this, but, and that's okay. I still think you're a nice guy. But what I will tell you is, I think town council is going down, is considering a dangerous precedent. When we have relied on an engineer who has literally worked on town of Weaverville roads since the 80s. And yet now we're turning around and offering to do something different when just, 3 years ago, we gave the very same guidelines for Creekside. I am very concerned about the precedent there, and as your budget officer, I'm very concerned about the budget that we face when we get to the point where we have got to replace and repair these roads if we have no idea how intact they are underneath. How much fill, how much organic fill we have. We have no idea where there's a potential for sinkholes in that road at this point in time. And when you get to large issues like that, you're not just talking about repairs and improvements. You're talking about significant road project there. So I'm very, very concerned about the precedent that we're considering taking here. If we are going to do something different than we worked with Creekside on.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I didn't get to ask part 2 of my question earlier
sorry?
because we got off track on something. When I asked if there was any documentation that these roads do meet DOT standards, if there is documentation that these roads meet DOT standards, would that be acceptable to the town of Weaverville?
Well, they're actually indicating that they believe the roads do meet town standards.
I think what you heard Mr. Pennell say is that the plans may have indicated it, and there may be some information out there from a field note or something from the private engineer that may indicate that, but you still, I think it's Mr. Pennell's professional opinion that you need that testing to at least demonstrate what's on the ground. Because sometimes the best laid plans, best engineered plans do not always translate to the ground.
Any other questions or comments on this issue? Do we still believe that we want to ask the staff and the HOA to do as we indicated earlier, and come back to us in a couple months with the update?
If they want to.
Yes.
Yeah, if they want to.
Mr. King has a comment.
So what I had down is that perhaps the town engineer, Mr. Pennell, could get with the HOA if they wish to do some preliminary testing and pick out 10 sites and see what those might show us, and that encouraging staff to meet with HOA and their engineers to sort of see what the next bit of information can be brought back to you before decisions are made.
And also an update on what the status
Yes.
of the 70-foot road into the
Yep.
property happens with that. Good, everybody? Head nods will do. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Pennell. Thank you, Mr. King. And I apologize if I misrepresented your answer. Next item up is item C, the Community Center Annual Report, and our Community Center Manager, Sarah Myers, is here to give us that.
So in your agenda packet, you should have received a little chart, just a basic bare bones, numbers, revenue and usage for the community center for the last year, and I'm looking at a little extra for that. So I'll walk you through it, a little bit, and then I'd love to answer any questions. So as you'll see, the total revenue for, paid events at the community center have been $64,523 over the last year. And that's up till December 8th, so there's so it's just additional revenue, which is, nice that it's separated out that way, in my opinion. I do not think, I'll let you know, that the covered patio, fireplace add-on, or covered patio add-on, those numbers are accurate. I think that Civic Reg had a little blip. Just from my 4 months of experience, that is not reflecting of, that's not accurate, in my opinion. And then you'll also see that we have turned away a bit from using this space for rentals, like here and there, especially during voting closures in the big room at the community center. We don't have folks use this space from time to time, so 2 years, 2 times this past year. That revenue for 2023 is a 29% increase over 2022. And paid rentals, I am really not as confident in myself. Paid rentals are approximately 42% of reservations, and then the other 58% is the free programming or community programs or partnerships and other uses of the center. The important note in that 42% and 58% breakdown is that is not actual time utilization. I'd be happy to dig deeper into that number to see what the actual time breakdown is for paid versus free programming. It's really just the number of events that are happening, the number of reservation requests and space holders that you have. You'll just see the additional texture for the programs that we offer through the Weaverville Center for Creative and Healthy Living. Those are all free. They're all taught by volunteers. The town does offer a grant to that program for some operations through the year. But you will see that that's about 590 uses, like I said, 58% of those room requests. A little bit more information into the paid rentals. Surprisingly, the largest percentage of paid rentals are for nonprofit use. So they are HOAs, annual meetings, business meetings, trainings. That surprised me. I'm not sure, but I'm also only 4 months in. And trainings and workshops. The other largest percent is parties, so anniversaries, birthdays, holidays, what we expected. I can also provide additional information into the rest of the breakdowns of the category usage if you all are interested. But a little bit on deposits and damages, because I know you all recently approved the increase in deposits that were withholding. In August, one of a bigger expenditure for us was that we put shower walls inside the storage room where we keep our tables and chairs in order to prevent additional damage, because the damage was happening from rolling racks. I'm sorry.
It's our problem, Sarah, not yours.
Thank you. Really fancy.
Batteries, is that what we need?
Deposits are also withheld, not just for damages, but also for extra staff time on cleaning, having to call in the fire department for balloons that are, 50 feet up. And we've experienced some scratching on the floors and some scuffing on the walls. So I do think that in the next year or so, just as we look at future budgetary needs, some interior painting and potential flooring replacement will have to be considered for the community center. So before I give a little update also on the playground and the recreation complex, I wasn't sure if you all had any questions about community center usage or free programming versus paid rentals, whatever you get.
I was looking at this and on the private rentals, you're talking about more than every other day having an event. I mean, that's what it averages out, 175 out of 365, so you're high utilization.
Absolutely.
It is mind-boggling. We have weekends where there are 3 weddings back to back.
Oh,
and
my
folks will
goodness.
rent the center all day for a wedding. And the open hours, it even is less than that because we don't allow overnight rentals. So it starts at 8:30 and you have to be out of the building by 11.
Have you checked with other venues around that what their charge is for, usage of a facility like we have, because I think the reason we're getting so much volume is because our costs are so low.
Well, that's true. I mean, you can have a wedding on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday here for 1/8 of what you will pay for a wedding venue.
I'm not suggesting to match the others, but
Right.
I think we ought to take a look at, maybe we need to increase the fees on some of that.
And that's, yep, that's something we've talked about
Yeah.
for the next budget process.
You will see that in the budget. One of the things that I will tell you is some of the, in talking with my colleagues who, some of them have community centers too, frankly, their community centers are not the kind of places that they want to have weddings. So.
With this view,
But I'm saying ours is different. That, you know, they're not, Woodfin doesn't want to have weddings. There are other jurisdictions that have community centers that do not have, no one wants to have a wedding in their building. So we are very, very, very fortunate that we have such wonderful use, but we will be bringing back to you some increases in fees with the next one. We knew, we're up 2 years now. We've been running 2 years. So we've learned a lot, and we plan on bringing, in the upcoming budget, we'll bring back to you some increases, but not to make it, we don't want to discourage our residents, and those neighboring jurisdiction folks that live close to us from using, but we also realize what we've got now.
Well, it's like a house. You can have so many square feet, and one house might be $150 per square foot, and you can have another one with a lot of elaborate stonework and other
Right.
things, and be worth $300 or $400 square foot.
That's also.
We've got a top end, and we're not comparing it, and I hate to mention it, but if you look at some of the neighboring towns, like, for example, Woodford, I don't know if you've been to their community center. I suggest you look. It's not even comparable to ours.
And that's why it's hard to find comps, because we are a community center that I don't think there is one like ours in the area, not to like brag on us, but we don't add the additional perks that a wedding venue provides. So it is hard to find an exact comp because we are kind of a thing on our own.
But our usage indicates that we need to make adjustments.
I agree.
You get to set your own standards.
Yeah, terrifying.
thank you, Sarah.
Yes. So really quickly, I'll also give you a little update of the Lake Louise Playground is open. And just from personal experience and from some folks I've heard around the community center, people are loving it. It has been very highly used so far in the 50 and 55-degree weather, and great feedback so far. The recreation complex continues to move towards an opening date. Due to the weather, we haven't been able to put down the coating to actually make the courts really beautiful, but instead we've striped it so that hopefully there can still be a soft opening in the beginning of 2024, maybe. I don't want to put any words in anyone's mouth, but the fencing, I think, is going up today. The posts for the nets have been placed and the parking area has been paved, so it is really chugging along. And tomorrow morning, we'll convene one more meeting of the ad hoc advisory committee that we have for pickleball and the recreation complex, because we have received some feedback that we need to think a little bit more intentionally about the operations of this space. So hopefully they will give us some good feedback to make the soft opening and grand opening go as well as possible.
Any questions for Sarah? Thank you, Ms. Myers. Great stuff.
Thank you.
Next item up, and then we knocked off item D, so we're going to move on to item E, some personnel policy amendments. And Town Manager, would you give us a briefing on that?
I think I have nudged the town attorney. I've been talking too much tonight, so she's gonna take off with these and I'll jump in if I need to.
I'm going to try to keep my comments on this fairly brief and then see where there might be some questions. Your town manager and I routinely look through your policies to make sure that we've got good legal compliance, that our policies are in keeping with good employment practices. That has been done. We try not to bring changes to you very often, so when we do, it's kind of a mishmash of a whole bunch of different things. So the changes that are proposed by the town manager and that I support, the cover sheet of your agenda item, I'm just gonna kind of go through that. We've added a definition of salary. That was a definition that was just missing. We have clarified the handling of overtime compensation in FEMA-declared emergencies. We're eligible for some FEMA reimbursement when it's largely our public safety folks that are sent to deploy to other areas, and so this just helps us with our reimbursement on that. We have clarified the provision concerning employment of relatives. We've changed the conversion of unused holiday leave from annual leave to sick leave. There's a whole complicated rollover software issue that Ms. Dozier could probably go into detail on, but in essence, we needed to make that fixed because of our payroll system. We have clarified that all leave accruals are on a pay period basis. We've noted that sick leave can be used for approved bereavement leave. I would say that all of those noted changes are fairly minor in nature and scope. The first change that I think is really substantive is a change to the bereavement leave provision that allows up to 3 days of paid bereavement leave for the death of immediate family members and up to 4 hours for our employees to attend the services of a fellow coworker or former coworker. We've suggested an increase of tuition assistance from up to $1,000 to up to $2,000, and we have fixed a discrepancy in the employee suggestion program that you put in place, gosh, several years ago. Just to note that department heads are not eligible to participate in that. It was on the form, but not in the text itself. And then also to add a provision that authorizes the town manager to administer an employee incentive program that is different from the employee suggestion program that you have. It's my understanding that funds have been budgeted for that, and Ms. Coffey is in the process of getting a good program in place for that. This just authorized, and I believe y'all talked about it during the budget.
We did.
This just puts in place the authorization for that. We have substantially revised the grievance policy and procedure, really for clarity and completeness. So that's offered for your approval, and then there are just a few typographical errors that we would like to fix along the way. It's my understanding that none of these proposed amendments will require a budget amendment. The funds that have already been allocated for the employee suggestion program, for the employee incentive program, and really the other stuff really doesn't require a budget amendment. Questions?
What's the definition of immediate family member?
Good question.
I didn't see it.
It's
so-
a fairly broad, it may not, it's a very broad definition. Actually, I can pull it up right here.
Well, a lot of companies go ahead and write it out.
It is, it's in
Spouse,
there.
father, mother, grandmother, children.
It's in there
It's
if
in
you'll,
there.
if you'll.
Meriwether, just, if I could speak while she's looking for that, speak to the incentive program. One of the things that during my last evaluation process that you all performed for me, my annual evaluation, you talked to me about how we retain and recruit employees. And so what I have done is I've actually attended 4 classes and received a lot of really valuable input from other jurisdictions on just programs, simple, inexpensive programs that they're putting into place that really bring a lot when it comes to the employee, when it comes to rewarding them for very simplistic ideas, thoughts, that kind of thing, but also rewarding them for let's say, in some situations, a couple of our departments have a harder time recruiting. Let's point to Chief Harris over there at trying to keep a full staff. One of those would be to provide a very minor amount of a referral. Let's say $100 if somebody refers somebody. So we're talking about very simple things. In my view, very simple, but what I've learned in these classes is that these jurisdictions that have put these programs in place, like Durham and Raleigh and some of the larger places, have really gotten pretty creative and put these kinds of programs in place, and it brings a sense of cohesion among the staff. And it brings another sense of engagement. In other words, bringing staff together for engagement. And I'll also point to Chief Harris on this one. One of the first, I have charged department heads with coming up with engagement opportunities where they do something that engages all staff. And so what the fire department did was one day they cooked chili and grilled cheese for all the employees. And so all the employees could go up, grab some lunch and leave and go about their business. And the goal with that is to keep employees engaged and not feeling like, well, Public Works is here, finance is here, police is here. It kind of gives everyone an opportunity to network and have some time together, and to kind of build on the organization as a whole and really improve on those types of things. So my goal, I heard you in my evaluation, I heard you and what you wanted me to look at and look at some innovative ways of retaining employees. And so that's what I'm working on. I've got several PowerPoints and notes that I'm working on. And so what I will plan to do is once I have that completely ready for you, I'll send that out to you so you can take a look at it. But the money, we did put some money in the budget to go ahead and start a program like this. Again, it's not huge amounts of money. It's minor dollar amounts, but it from what I'm hearing from other colleagues from across the state is it goes a long way in keeping your employees happy, and when you keep them happy, they want to stay, and so we want to continue that because we're frankly what I've been hearing in these classes that I've been taking is that we're in this time of, I'm sure you all have heard, the quiet quitting. The quiet quitting mentality is among us, and those kinds of things. And so my goal is to make us a place where people don't want to quietly quit. They want to continue to be engaged, and they want to find, they want to find inherent feelings of worth and value in what they're doing. And so that's my goal with that. So Jennifer, sorry, I just given Jennifer some time to find the definition there.
It's still on.
So the definition of immediate family that has been in your, I think it's been in your personnel policy since it was adopted, is an employee's spouse or domestic partner, parent, sibling, child, grandparent or grandchild, aunt or uncle, niece or nephew, guardian or ward, and the step and half relations of those aforementioned and the corresponding relatives of the employee's spouse or domestic partner. So it's written very broadly.
And you might question, well, why are we including nephews, nieces, grandparents? Reason being is a lot of folks are raised by their grandparents. A lot of folks are raised by their aunts and uncles. And so we wanted to try to be as inclusive of those true familial relationships that are truly close. And obviously, if someone wants to to go and take some bereavement time for an uncle they haven't seen in 16 years. You know, we're gonna question that kind of thing. But if it's an uncle that maybe raised someone, then we want to be inclusive of those folks.
Any other questions? I think these, as the managers indicated, these measures are designed to create a culture where people want to stay here, because we all know that hiring people already is a real challenge for across the board, not just for government, across the board. And, you know, there's reason to think that that's going to remain the case probably for several years. So if we can keep the folks we have, the less likely we're going to be in a situation where we're looking for people that we simply can't locate, so. Is there another
I'm sorry, just from a, sort of from a package standpoint, the personnel policy is usually adopted as a resolution. It is definitely not adopted as an ordinance. And so you do have in your packet a resolution, entitled Resolution Amending the Town's Personnel Policy, which would include those, the amendments that I described.
If there's no questions, is there a motion to adopt the resolution that Jennifer just referred to? Any other questions?
I have a question. I think it's great that we're increasing the tuition assistance, but I was curious to find out, on average, how many takes advantage of that every year?
Last year we had one. Year before that, I think we had two. One of the things I plan on doing this year is creating a kind of a marketing document, but also more than just a marketing document, a document to hand to employees and say, you know, this is your compensation. You're getting paid X amount annually. We're paying X amount for your insurance. We're paying X amount for your 401k. We're paying X amount. And we did a summary like that last year. We're going to do another one in January. But I think there are some of these types of items that we don't brag on ourselves enough about and tell them, you know, if it's tuition that's directly related to the job you're doing for us, we will pay for your tuition. So I think one this year, I think we had two last year. So it's just not something that either people just feel comfortable asking for or they don't know about it. But we're trying to make sure that folks know about it. And when we know, just recently I found out that one of our employees had been working on his bachelor's degree, hadn't asked for anything. And I talked to his department head and said, tell him to put in his application. And when you put in the application, you've got to provide a copy of a copy of the class, a copy of where you've paid for it already, a copy of you know, if you get a transcript of sorts afterwards, that kind of thing. We ask for backup to go along with it. So we're not just cutting a check and assuming that they're taking the class. We're making sure that they are taking it. So I hope that we can encourage more and more of that.
I was going to say, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? There's a motion on the table. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Last item tonight is our quarterly report from our Public Works Director again, Mr. Pennell. We're working.
Oh, my.
There we go.
There we go. We're always having trouble.
If you look at page 101, under November 23, the third line down, that's an interesting number there. When you look at the month before, we had 3,259 active water meters in October of 23, but only 3,247 in November. And I questioned our meter folks, why are we you know, what's going on? That's how many people turned their water off and went south for the winter. So I thought that was sort of an interesting number to look at. On page 102, under the 3-month average, the second line down, it shows that Randall and his very qualified crew out at the water plant are averaging producing about 50% of the plant capacity on a daily basis. That's just a good number to have in the back of your mind as we talk about commitments. 3 or 4 lines down, it says the total water production is 876,000 gallons. So and you can look at the 3 previous months. That's a very consistent number of about that 20,876,000. If you go to the very last line under the 3-month average column and look at the previous months, we're still averaging less than 10% unaccounted water, which is our goal every month, and we're at 8.3% for this quarter. If you look at page 103, that's the if you look under water capacity versus production and look at the bold line there, you could see in September we were at 75.9% of capacity, and October 76.6%, and then we jumped up to that 94% number. So that's, again, just to show what happened in this past month. And then finally on page 104, no one can explain it, but everyone says we've had more leaves this year than we've had in the past. And it seems like every time that we'd go through the town and pick up everyone's leaves, we'd have someone calling saying, "You've not been here in 6 weeks." Well, when did you rake your leaves? And it turns out that these numbers are running far above last year. So I think whatever moisture we had in the environment in the spring and the summer contributed to the growth of leaves on the trees, because we certainly have had our share, and we're going to run leaves for the rest of the week this week to try to see if we can get caught up before everyone's company comes for the holidays. I want to talk for a minute about the couple of the miscellaneous things at the bottom. We had an Eagle Scout that came to us, one of several over the last years. Hayden Guilfoyle, who's an Eagle Scout candidate for Boy Scout Troop 15 here in Weaverville. And they took on a project to renovate all the benches at Lake Louise. And every bench that was not perfect in terms of the material and the condition of the wood or the recycled material that the bench is made out of, they replaced the wood where needed. They painted all the posts black. They painted all the benches gray. So now we're very much have plenty of benches for folks to sit on as they walk the trails for their health purposes, and to watch the children play on the playground. So we're very pleased to thank him for doing that. Our paving program got started in October with some work, and so far we've paved Wildwood Knoll and Wildwood Park out on the north end. Did that in November. The temperature when we do paving work has to be 45 degrees and rising. And with the average temperature these days at the Weather Bureau, at the average high is 51. We're just about out of paving season. And but what we have done, as the town manager mentioned, we've been able to get ahead of the paving work with our concrete work, where a sidewalk along, especially Alabama and Central, we needed to do some work on some of the drive entrances and the handicap ramps at intersections in order to make them ADA compatible. And we're finished with Alabama. We're halfway finished on Central, getting ready to do the ones at College Crescent. Mr. Jackson, you'll see those being done. And we've already done the ones on Robert Street over near the cemetery in preparation for paving. So we're where we thought we would be given what the weather is. And so we've got 8 streets to pave as soon as the weather gets warm in the spring. Sarah did a wonderful job about the recreation complex and the playground. The playground is open. We opened it last Tuesday when we finished the boardwalk from the handicap parking over to the playground. We've got a little bit of sod left to do to complete the project, and we're going to get that done this week. So by this weekend, we'll remove all the metal posts and orange fencing, and it'll all be 100% done. And the first person on the playground was a little 6-month-old young lady who was swinging with her mom in the swings, and I asked her if she'd come over, and she did, and sat on the end of the slide, and I got a picture of her there and a picture of her picking up one of the mallets on one of the xylophones that are surround the playground, and her mother was excited that her daughter was going to have that in her history, being the first person there. I went by Saturday, best I could count, there was upwards of 40 people, adults and children, on the playground. So I'm hoping we'll have some warm weather as the holidays arrive. The recreation complex, Sarah mentioned, I think they finished the fencing on the upper 2 courts, which will be courts A and B. And then they'll be working tomorrow on courts C and D, which are the ones near the community center. They paved the parking lot last week. They striped it today. And let's see, we've transferred the porta potty over to our name for the time being, so remove that from the contractor. We've got some signage to go up on the courts. We've got the benches to go on the courts. We've got the pickleball racket racks to go up, so people apparently put their pickleball rackets on the rack to say, "I'm next to play." So we got those. We've got cornhole, prefabricated, precast cornhole targets that are coming to go between courts A and B and the road on the area we reserved for some yard games. They're on their way, and so we're so close. We're so close to opening. So I'm not going to say out loud when, but we'll be doing a soft opening on the courts just like we did on the playground. And then the coating, as they mentioned, it had to be 50 degrees. No, it had to be a minimum of 50 degrees for 3 days in a row to put the coating down. And it was snowing when I came in. So but they have temporarily striped the courts so they still can be used for playing. And then finally, the last major capital project that we have is our water line replacement project that you funded in this year's budget. We have we've selected a consultant. We're reviewing their contract. As a matter of fact, this afternoon we did that, and they're going to be ready to start on their work right after the first of the year. And so we should be having some water lines to be built soon thereafter. And the last page of my report, we've already gone over in detail. Is there anything I can answer for you?
Any questions for the director? No? Thank you very much for the good work you do, sir. And if there's no more business coming before this board this evening, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Patrick, have you ever seen that movie Cool Hand Luke?
Okay, here's a note for everybody.
I wanted to make a statement here. It's the 3 mics we had, I want to say